Alright, hello everyone. So I'm back today with another video, and today I am going over this clock slash alarm slash stopwatch little thing, and I think it's a really neat little device. I picked one of these up because one of the YouTubers I watch, Fix It Marcus, uses it in his videos. You can see his channel here. In his more recent videos, he's been using one of these, it doesn't really show in the preview, but he's been using one of these uh, as a stopwatch so that he basically keeps it in the top corner of his mat. He has it running as he's working so you can see in real time how long it's taken him to work on something. And I think that's pretty neat. I might incorporate that. But the reason I'm talking about this device today is because it charges over USB-C, and that's really great because a lot of my stuff charges over USB-C. My laptop, my phone, my iPad, my Nintendo Switch, a whole bunch of stuff. And it's really, really convenient when everything just has the same charger on it. But there are some issues with USB-C charging, and particularly with cheaper made devices like this one. I got this for like $14, which I appreciate because, the device itself didn't cost that much. But a lot of cheaper USB devices suffer from this problem where they'll charge with USB-C to USB-A cables, but not USB-C to USB-C cables. This is something that Louis Rossmann kind of went over in this video here. USB-C charging is not as universal as you think. He tries a bunch of different USB chargers on 3 different USB-C devices, and not all the chargers work the same on all the devices, which is kind of crazy, right? You'd figure the U stands for universal, everything would work. So I'm going to showcase how that looks on this device here right now. So I'm going to take a USB-C power meter and I'm going to plug it into the port. And first I'm going to take the cable that is the USB-C to USB-A cable, so this should charge no problem. And you're going to see something come up on the power meter here, and you should also see a battery icon there. And there's no problem, so the power meter's lighting up and we have our charging icon. We can unplug the cable, flip it, and plug it back in, and no problems there. But now, if I take a cable that is a USB-C to USB-C cable, so exact same port to charge, and I plug it in, you see we don't get anything on either the power meter or the battery charging icon. Now maybe this cable's just bad on one side, so let's flip it, and no. And there's no tricks or anything here. This cable is plugged into power. I'll prove it by taking my little microphone receiver here. Sorry, transmitter. This is my transmitter. It's actually the microphone I'm using right now. I'm going to take my cable here. And let's plug it into my mic. They should beep or something. Actually, wait, that doesn't. Let me do it with the power meter. The light's already on, so you're not going to see anything. All right, now, there we go. See? So this cable is plugged into power. It's just that this device won't accept a charge from a USB-C to USB-C cable. So it's really common on cheap USB-C devices, and it's really annoying, right? Because you have this one cable that's supposed to work with all your stuff, and then you find little devices here and there don't work with it. So this is something I've actually had to deal with a lot, and today I'm going to show you how to fix it. So there are 2 ways you can go about this. You can go the easy way, and you can just buy a little data blocker dongle cable thing. I'm going to try and put a picture of it on the screen now. And basically what that does is it forces all downstream devices to 5 volts. So it's not the intended functionality. The intended functionality of that device is not to make USB-C devices able to charge with whatever cable. It's intended to prevent your phone from being juice jacked at public charging stations. But those work for allowing devices to charge with any USB-C cable. But that's an external solution. What I'm going to teach you is an internal solution where we're going to disassemble this guy and we're going to solder 2 5.1K resistors to the USB-C circuit in here. Okay, so let's get into this device without further ado. Let's turn it off first. And there are no screws on the back, and these feet aren't hiding any screws either. I ran my finger down the feet, and there's no grooves for screws or anything like that. So we're probably going to need to get in through the front here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this jimmy tool in between the 2 pieces of plastic, and I'm going to just try and make an opening. I might start at the side here. Yeah, this is definitely easier to make a gap here. Okay. Great, so we got this off. And now it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws. These look like Phillips 000 screws, so we're going to undo the screws. And to organize the screws, I'm going to get my magnetic mat in here. And I'm sure these screws are all the same length and thread type, so it's not super important to organize them, but I just like keeping my screws organized. Oh, there's no screw hole there. Okay, so it looks like there's only 5 screws. Okay, so we got all our screws undone. Put this off to the side. And now I think this should come away from the rest of the housing. Okay, so everything's come undone except for like this nub here, so I'm just gonna remove it with pliers, honestly. Okay. Now I think it should come up. Okay, so this thing was really hard to get into for no reason. Let's make sure it still works. It doesn't, and that looks like it's because I ripped this battery connector, so let me go ahead and fix that. Alright, so I've got a problem. I don't know which one of these connections is ground, so I'm going to take my multimeter and in continuity mode. So, great. I'm going to put my probe on this guy and assume these screws are ground. These screws are not ground. Okay, maybe this metal part of the USB-C connector is ground. Looks like it is. Okay, so let's see which one of these are ground. This one closer to the inside is not, so this one closer to the outside should be. Okay, great. Yeah, so this connection near the outside is ground. I'm going to just bring that up a little closer because I don't have zoom on this camera. So yeah, there's two connections. This one closer to the outside edge is the ground connection. Yep. Okay, cool. So now we know how to put our battery connector back on with the black wire facing the outside. So let's do that. Okay. Yep. And it still works. Oh, cool. It changes colors. I didn't know that. I'll have to play with the menu to figure that out. Okay. So it does still work. Great. So let's get this battery disconnected. We just reconnected it to make sure it still worked. Oh my goodness. Oh. All right. Yeah, this thing is really hard to get into. Okay. Anyway, so we got our battery disconnected. Looks like we got our speaker here too, so let's disconnect that. And this is also really in there. When using pliers for disconnecting stuff like this, make sure you're only pulling on the this like white connector bit and not the actual housing, because then you rip off the connector. Okay, great. So we can get this out of the way now, and we can also get rid of our pliers and our pry tool for now. Okay. So now we have the main board, and we have some more screws here. So let's undo those screws. So for those of you keeping count, there are 2, 4, 6, 8 screws holding the motherboard in. Now it should just come out neat. We can put this to the side. And now we flip our board. And this is a nice little board. Okay, so our area of interest is the USB-C port here. So we are going to move to the microscope view now. Let me get the microscope into frame. Okay, so now we're under the microscope, and here is our Type-C port. And interesting. Okay, right away we can see what's going on here. So we have 6 pins here. You can see these 2 pins are soldered to the board, so they're making connections somewhere, but these 2 pins are just floating out in the wild. These are the 2 pins that we need in order for our Type-C to C cable to work. So let me bring the multimeter back in. And these outer pins are going to be ground, which we can verify like this. So these two pins are connected to each other, and these two inner pins are connected to each other, and they're a positive connection. But these two pins are not connected anywhere. These are our CC pins, CC1 and CC2. I'm not sure which one is which. So what we need to do is we need to take two 5.1K resistors on each of these pins, and we need to tie one end to each pin and then another end to ground. So let's do that now. We need to get our resistors now, so I'm going to grab two resistors. So here I have my two resistors. Here is 1, and here is 2. Okay. Alright, so we've got our board in a board holder now. So now we need to solder our two resistors to the CC pins. Okay, so let's turn on our fume extractor. And let's get some flux on this port. And I'm going to be using a size C115 soldering iron handle. It's super tiny. And yeah, let's get some solder on the tip. I'm going to take one resistor and just solder it to one of these pins. Okay, great. I got one. Now I'm going to get the other one. Just a little bit more flux since I used up most of it on that. Alright, that's going to be a problem. No worries. Let's see if we can first just break it up. Yeah, okay, no worries there. So let's just start by using the other end of the resistor that has less solder on it. And this is what happens when we don't use flux. So let's get some flux in here. Okay, so now we're going to come in here with some alcohol. So this is 99% isopropyl. And we're going to brush off the flux. Okay, so now what's really important is we want to make sure that the two CC pins are not bridging, because then the C to C cable will only work in one orientation. So let's get our multimeter again. Okay, and it looks like they're not continuous. Yeah, no beep. Okay, so they're beeping when I touch them, but not when I touch each pin. So I think we're good. I think these are soldered to each pin individually. We can tie the ground connection together because these are both going to go to ground, so there's no problem if these two sides touch, but we want these two pins to be separate. So it's good that that's working. So we can zoom out now. And now, I guess, then let's solder the other end of the two resistors together, and then we're going to tie that to ground. Okay, so let's get some flux on here again. This is going to be way too much, but that's okay. We can always just wash it off. Oh my goodness. Okay. This is a super thin enameled wire here. It's 42 gauge. Great, that's one. Great, okay. So now we just need to solder this wire to ground, and I could do it by doing it on this pin here, but it's honestly going to be easier if I just do it here. So let me get some flux on there. And some solder on my iron. Alright, so I accidentally exposed a power trace, which bonded that pin to VCC. So we need to really separate this pin from that trace, and then we need to get some solder mask in here. This ended up being a tougher job than I thought it would be. But that's okay. So we're going to get some solder mask now to isolate that pin from the power trace. Let's get our UV light in here now. Okay, so hopefully that's isolated now, so let's try and get this resistor back on there. It's going to be tough, so we have to solder it on without bridging it to the pad underneath, but I think we can do it. Alright, I'm going to keep messing with this. Probably off camera. Alright, it took a while, but I think I got it. So the outer two ground pads are continuous. The ground and shield are continuous. The ground and end of the resistor are continuous on both resistors. The two resistors are not continuous, and neither resistor is continuous with VCC or ground. Whew. So that was a lot more trouble than it usually is. But let's test it now. So first let's test the cable that we know already was good. And we're going to plug it in. Okay, now we know what to expect if it's working. Okay, let's reverse. So white, red, and then off. Okay. So let's grab our USB-C to USB-C cable from earlier. And let's plug in the power meter. Okay, yay. And now, if we flip. Okay, awesome. Great. I'm honestly a little worried about the longevity of this, so I'm gonna coat it in this like UV glue stuff I've got here, just to try and hold it in place. Okay, and then I'm gonna cure that off camera, and we're gonna reassemble this. Okay, so that was honestly a lot more involved than I thought it would be, but it did end up working out. Now we are going to get our front plate back on. Let's see, how does this go on? It's gotta be like this, no? Like this, okay. Alright, and we have to get our screws back in. And a tip with these like plastic threaded screws, if you go just a little counterclockwise, they go back into their threads and then you can screw them in. Alright, so we've got our plate back in. Let's get our buttons back in as well. Okay. So it looks like this wider opening goes to the front side. So there's 1 and 2. Let's put them both on the bottom. Okay, and now let's plug in our speaker. Okay, so on the speaker, the red wire faces outwards, and on the battery, the black wire faces outwards. Great, and now let's get this. Oh, I did it upside down. Whoops, okay. All right, now let's get this back into the plate. All right, and let's just see if it turns on. Yay, still turns on. Still beep. Yeah, beep still works. Does it charge? Let's grab the two cables from earlier. So this is the one from before, so it should work no problem. And it would probably be better if I had the power meter since we can't really see that. Let's see if I can put this guy on. Let's turn it off. And look at that, we got the battery. So that's with the original cable, so that's still no problem. Now with the new cable, the C to C cable, we should also be getting power and battery. Awesome! Yep. Okay, so we have fixed this little problem. It was a lot more trouble than I thought it was going to be, honestly. But this little device can now charge with any of my USB-C cables. And while hopefully it goes better for you when you do this kind of mod, all you need to do is you need to find those two CC pins and you need to tie them separately to ground with a 5.1K resistor. And then you can get up and going with your USB-C to USB-C charging. So let me know if you have any questions about this in the comments and if you would like to see me do this on any other kinds of devices. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.